All right, Jonathan, so we are here at the annual event for Genius Network. We're very excited. And one of the things that I noticed when I first went to my first Genius Network meeting is that even though these people are industry titans, people that are changing the world, and obviously you're one of the people that are in Genius Network, you think that everybody has everything figured out. What I realized after talking with everyone is that nobody still has it figured out, even on that level. They're
Right.
they're dealing with even bigger problems. I've noticed over the past few months, even though you've started an amazing movement with Superlearner, that you're looking at transitioning to the next phase. And
Right.
I think that that's a really important thing for people to realize, especially the ambitious people that are in your audience, is that even someone like yourself that they're learning from, you're still figuring things out and going to the next level. And I thought maybe you could share a little bit about that transition that you're going through and some of the things that you're looking at doing in the next coming years.
Yeah, so that's a really great question. I think as an entrepreneur, I've gone through a phase and an understanding that as entrepreneurs, both you and I believe that we make a lot of sacrifices. Like we sacrifice security, we sacrifice the ability to just shut off, we sacrifice a lot of potential failure. And I think for that sacrifice, we should buy something back. So whether that means you should make more money, you should be able to determine when you work, with whom you work, and on what you work. And that's kind of a core belief of mine, is like for all the shit that I put up with as an entrepreneur, all the stress, all the uncertainty, all the like putting myself out there, the potential social repercussions, I better get to choose those things. And so I really believe like if I'm only working on something for the money, it's not good enough. I need to be really, really excited about what I'm working on. And I tend to think every entrepreneur I've ever known, except for a couple in Genius Network, there are a couple of people in Genius Network, like the gentleman who runs the mail window.
I don't know if I met him.
Well, in any case, he's been working for 25 years on the same thing. But for the most part, I find that most entrepreneurs have the 7-year itch, which is a famous movie with Marilyn Monroe in it, but that there's the 7-year itch, and after 7 years, it starts at like 5 years, then after 7 years, you're like, okay, I'm done with this problem, I want to work on something new. And I'm starting to have that certainly for memory. I'm starting to get excited about other ideas, other content, other opportunities that we can work on. Because how much can you talk about the same thing? Now, granted, like Tony Robbins has talked about the same stuff for 25 years.
Yeah.
But he's always developing new content and stuff like that. It's kind of like an artist, a musician, playing their greatest hits, but they're always still developing new stuff.
Yeah.
I think you need that. Otherwise, creativity is a fire. People talk a lot about the creative fire. And if you let the fire go out, it's really hard to rekindle the fire.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, how easy is it to just throw additional wood on the fire?
Right.
And that's where I think, like, new ideas, new opportunities, like, no matter how good your business is going, part of it is, like, the human spirit. Like, we always want more, and the hedonic ladder, which is a real thing. We always want to do more, try more, be challenged. But another part of it is just the way capitalism is structured. Anything that's not growing, and nature, by the way, anything that's not growing in nature is dying, right? Like, sure, you have those little bonsai trees, but they're still growing new leaves,
Right.
And they'll live for thousands of years. But if it's not growing, it's dying. And the same is true in capitalism. If your business isn't growing, it's dying. So,
And personal growth as well.
oh yeah, 100%. And so I'm trying to restructure it not as like I'm fed up with memory or I'm fed up talking about productivity or whatever it may be, but rather I'm more excited about other opportunities, and that will likely I'll always be talking about memory and stuff like that. But yeah, just trying to follow my passions, because I think generally when you follow your passions, it's good for you and it's good for your business.
Yeah, and I think the thing I want to really pull out from there is that so many people in your audience, and whether it be branding you or Superlearner, they kind of look at Jonathan Levy as like the end point. And I think
Right.
that's like such an important thing to realize, is that Jonathan is not the end point, because Jonathan's still moving. So like
right,
that's
moving
like,
target.
Yeah, exactly. So like that's the thing, that as people are embarking on these journeys, when we talk about passive
Right.
income and building these multi-million-dollar businesses and being able to work from
Yeah.
anywhere, that is an end point for the first part. But then you got to realize that there's like a part 2, and then there's a part 3.
Right.
And that
Yeah, I tend
so
to think about, I think like my purpose, they talk about like the 2 most important days in a person's life are the day they're born and the day they figure out why.
Yeah.
And I really believe in that. And my why isn't necessarily to teach people how to learn more effectively. I'm looking for specifically, I want to empower 1 million people to live the life of their dreams through living unconventionally. And that could be through learning, that could be through a million other different things. But for me, it's about I want to teach people how to live extraordinary lives that are different.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think this just kind of came to me, that quote about the day you're born and the day you figure out why. I think the other level to that is there's multiple days where you figure out why.
Yeah,
There's
it doesn't just hit you.
It just hit me kind of like that, because it's like, you woke up one day and you're like, holy crap, my why is like teaching people how to learn
Right.
and do all that amazing stuff, and that is amazing, and you dominated that. But then there's another part where now you're all excited about online course creation. That's your new why.
Yeah.
And so I think that it's not only two
Yeah.
destinations, that there's multiple layers to it. That's really important.
Totally. And I think like I've gone through a whole, I wouldn't call it like an identity crisis, but I've kind of beat myself up. And what does it mean that I'm not interested in the learning and memory stuff anymore? Does it mean that I don't believe in it? Well, no, I still believe in it. Does it mean that, I don't think that it's the best way to help people? Well, no, I still think it's a really good way to help people. And I think you have to just not read into that too much, because it's like, in some ways it's a side effect of being a super learner,
Yeah.
right? Is like, I chew things up and spit them out so
Yeah.
fast. Like people will spend years on acro yoga and I got bored with it in a year.
Right.
And people will spend years and years and years on different learning projects that I just chew up and spit out really quickly.
Yeah, and I think too, the other thing that people don't realize is that the people that have stood the test of time are
Yeah.
people that have constantly pivoting and changing the new
Right.
things that they're working on.
Right.
So it's like, very rarely do you come across someone who's only talked about one subject. Like
Totally.
Even like Tim Ferriss started a 4-hour work week, 4-hour body, 4-hour
Yeah,
chef.
he was a
like, these are,
real inspiration
Yeah.
in realizing like you don't have to just stick to one subject and be that guy.
Right.
And I think he opened the door for a lot of thought leaders and people in general to just be like, oh yeah, I wrote this book on the 5 a.m. principle, but now I also have a book on productivity, and
Right.
and my next book, by the way, is on scaling businesses. And
Right.
because I think like once you are a distinguished thinker, then people want to understand, and we talk about this a lot in the Branding You course. It's like once you have a following, and what that means is that your following likes the way that you see the world. And so, yeah, once you have that following, they want to know how you approach parenting, and they want to know how you handle life's challenges,
Yeah.
and they want to know how you handle habits, and
Yeah,
so on and so forth.
That's really cool. And another thing I actually saw from a Genius Network interview with Tony Robbins, and this actually kind of surprised me, is one of the things that Tony said was that one of the biggest mistakes that entrepreneurs make is they fall in love with their product or service.
Yeah.
And he says that the reason why that's such a disservice is that it's much better to fall in love with your audience.
Right.
Because if you can solve your audience's needs,
Totally.
it's so much more different than being stuck on super learning or being stuck on
Totally.
building a business. And that if you just kind of build that, Kevin Kelly's 1,000 True Fans, that they're there for a reason,
Right.
and that if you continue to adapt and provide value to them, that it's gonna be an amazing move for them in the long run.
Totally.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Jonathan. I appreciate it.